Hi folks, you're with Tacitus today, your pushback channel, and thank you for joining this live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about Black Lives Matter and one of their sort of more prominent leaders or sort of media spokespeople, Hawk Newsom. And he was recently interviewed on, I think it was Dan Bongino's show, and Dan Bongino asked him to condemn the Black Lives Matter violence. We've all seen it, the looting, the arson, the bashings, and so on. And he wouldn't do that. And the reason that he wouldn't do it is he said, look, black people are oppressed and they're lashing out. And so it's what they're doing is understandable. And it's what people in this situation do when they don't like what's happening around them. They go burning things down and killing folks and stuff like that. And you've got to expect it. Okay, well, let's assume that's the case for the moment. Then what is the cause of this oppression? Now, once you start going down that path, the talking heads in the black community, and there are some exceptions like Candace Owens, for example, but the talking heads in the black community will go, well, slavery. Well, no, that ended 160 years ago. So for the people living today, but slavery still affects us. Well, no. The black Americans are as a total group of the richest blacks in the world. So if slavery was the problem, they need to be the poorest blacks in the world. So the countries in Africa that and there's plenty of them, are basket cases, absolute basket cases. So that can't be the issue. Slavery can't be it. So blacks are pretty much poor all over the world, and whenever they take over a country, even if the country is very prosperous and rich, when the blacks take over, they'll run it into the ground, as they did with Rhodesia or Zimbabwe. So and they're doing to South Africa. So it can't be slavery. That's not it. So what else is it? There has to be other causes. So, white people, it's racism, it's white supremacy, it's a structure of society that's built only for white people, and there's nothing in it for blacks. All right. Well, if that's the way you feel, why don't you go to Africa? Why don't you go to another country then? What if it's so bad in America, as you say, that everything is stacked against black people? Why not go to another country? So if it is stacked against black people for no reason other than racism, then show some evidence of that. Now, if it's because black kids are disruptive in school, they don't study hard or work hard, they get lousy grades, they're unreliable employees, all that sort of stuff. They join gangs and have shootouts in Chicago streets, and they get in trouble with the police all the time for major crimes, not just petty stuff, although that too. So that doesn't seem to add up. The issue would appear to be that it's a black behavioural problem, not something that you go to any black country in the world and crime is off the charts. Muggings, bashings, rapings, theft, you name it, murder. They're always out of all the countries in the world. Those are the highest crime areas, highest crime countries. So there seems to be some sort of commonality there. But let's come back to the blacks in America thing. Most of the black people that seem to talk, I can't think of any that the BLM type folks, I can't think of any that have condemned mass migration, for example. Now, there's a crystal clear causal relationship between mass peasant third world migration, all these illiterate peasants coming into the United States or any Western country for that matter, but talking about the United States at the moment, and declining wages for black people and indeed loss of jobs. So this whole, say, this chicken processing plant that used to employ pretty much only black people. But since the mass migration began, they only employ illiterate peasants from the third world. So the black people have lost their jobs there, and there isn't other jobs they can get. So So the job opportunities for black people have really suffered with the mass migration, as well as you know, getting paid lower wages, the downward pressure on wages. So say in one chicken processing plant, as an example, the black workers were being paid, I think at the time, $12.50 an hour, and the factory guys, who are, by the way, from the big money end of town, big money investors. So if you want to direct your anger anywhere, direct it at the banks. I mean, goodness me. So the owners, the big money end of town owners, got rid of the black employees and employed peasants. Now, when they re-employed the blacks, like a few years later, mainly due to government raids, which are far too few, the government knew about this and they could have raided it much earlier if they'd wanted to. Then the blacks were brought back on $12.50 an hour, even though it was three years or so since they were on that rate. So just they should have been closer to $14 an hour. So that you can see the downward pressure effect on wages and of course loss of jobs. Now, something that affects everybody, but particularly the bottom end. At the bottom end of the housing market, the big banks, again, big finance, they've been out buying up swathes of real estate all over the place, and so rents at the bottom end, and across the board, but rents at the bottom end have gone up, more than twice the rate of wages. So, in fact, probably 2.5 times the rate of black wages. So, if you want to direct your anger anywhere, talk to your congressman. That's not something that's specifically targeted at black people, but it has a bigger effect on black people, given how they have to compete directly with third world peasants coming in. Now, for most, certainly and I've hired black people, and I've seen the effects of affirmative action in black kids that should have dropped out of high school when they were 14 or 15. They're going through high school, and they're getting affirmative action degrees, and they're coming out of college, and they're still illiterate, effectively illiterate or functionally illiterate, even though they've got a high school diploma and 2 college degrees, and that's kind of pretty scary. So they're saying, why should I try hard? Why should I work hard? I'll just get all these things anyway. The white kid works hard for it, and more the fool him. But I can get a high school graduation diploma and college degrees given to me. I don't have to squat. I don't have to take on the same debt as those white kids. Why should I go out of my way? Why should I work hard, study hard, apply myself, and take responsibility when all these things are given to me? And if I don't get what I want, I can just say, well, hey, it's racism. The whole system's stacked against me. But so you talk to black people and say, well, there are poor white people as well. And don't think all white people are rich. There's poor white. Yeah. Okay, no, I get that. I know there's poor white people, but I want all the toys and all the stuff that the rich white people have. That's what I want. And if I don't have that, then I'm oppressed, and then I'm going to burn down the neighborhood. And that kind of doesn't work. Now, the Black Lives Matter make a huge thing about police officers randomly killing blacks for no reason, which is a bit of a stretch. But it's got to the point now where if a black person tries to kill a white police officer and the white police officer shoots the black in the black person in self-defense, then that's still enough to put riots. So the riots are hair trigger stuff now. They're not even related to an injustice. They're just general riots. And Black Lives Matter and their support structure and the people that fund them, the George Soroses, the NGOs that help them and give them that logistical support to spread as much mayhem as they do, as well as some state and local governments that are incredibly sympathetic. I mean, how can a mayor of a city be sympathetic to a mob running around burning the place down? I mean, how could you even conceive of that sort of madness? But there you go. So there are things that are making black lives more difficult and more unpleasant. They need to be, but but that isn't where the black anger and so forth is directed. It's directed against white people as a class, and that's something that's the globalists are behind. So make no mistake, Black Lives Matter Antifa is a globalist play to divide society and guilt trip white people. But any solution to black issues is not being taken, and that the BLM isn't asking the right questions or even bothering to address it. If you look at, and I invite people to look at the works of Candace Owens, who is touching on these key subjects, such as the mass migration. But I haven't heard a BLM Antifa spokesman or leader condemn mass migration at all. Maybe they have, and I've missed it. But they're looking in the wrong place and blaming the wrong things and failing to address the real issues. Now, some years ago, when I was in the Northeast United States, I was talking to some people from the education department. They happened to be having a conference at a hotel I was staying at. I was there on business, and so we kind of ended up getting together in the hotel restaurant by accident. And I said, well, look, if black kids are falling behind white kids at school, which was considered to be a really big issue then, and it is today. So why don't you give the black kids special coaching, and why don't you give them help that way rather than giving them affirmative action, unearned high school diplomas? That doesn't achieve anything. If they're illiterate sort of at the beginning and still illiterate at the end, what have you achieved? You haven't improved their prospects of employment or getting a good job or something like that. So why don't you have spend your money on making these things available for black kids? Say after school, have special coaches in any subject, so that the black kid can have maybe one-on-one coaching that's going to help them do better at school. And they claim they've tried this, and pretty much everything I suggested that seems sensible, they claim they tried and it hadn't worked. Black kids just plain won't turn up, or you get a gang of them come in and they'll be disruptive and you can't do anything anyway, and so on. So they thought the situation was just beyond solution, just insoluble. It was the view, and the only way they could do it was to just look like they were doing something, which is this affirmative action thing, giving pass-throughs, giving degrees for nothing, and that sort of stuff. And hopefully over multiple generations it might have some sort of positive effect. But you could be looking at 75, 80 years before you can even measure the possible positive effect. I don't think it will be positive. I think things have gone backwards for black people because of affirmative action, and because of the government competing directly with black men in terms of being breadwinners and head of the family and that sort of stuff. If you look at say single mother households in the black community before the Great Society of Lyndon Johnson, then it wasn't significantly higher than whites. But now it's like more than double the rate for whites. So it goes to show that the policies, whether they were even well-meaning in the beginning or not, they're just not working. But this Hawk Newsom guy in the interview, Dan Bugino, he refused to condemn the violence and the arson and the looting, which is hardly useful to his cause. And by the way, I haven't seen, and maybe there is one, but I haven't seen a single politician condemn BLM and what Hawk Newsom said, refusing to condemn the violence and the looting and the arson and so on. He should have done that as a matter of course, but imagine the reverse was the case, and a white guy refused to condemn something that some white people allegedly did. It would be international headlines, and the media would form a pack and a posse and go straight after whoever said that and try and lynch them in the social justice, social media tree. But this Hawk Newsom gets a free pass. I don't get it. That's my take on things. You've been with Tacitus today, your Pushback channel, and thank you for listening.